All right, you're good.
Okay, then let me just get over to here. Okay, this is the first game workshop. Welcome, everybody. I am going to basically make a very simple game in Unity from scratch. And then this should go over a bunch of the basic components. There are more advanced tools, but I'm not going over those because you don't really need them for this process. So all Unity projects open with an empty scene. It will start with just camera and lighting. We will not really be touching the lighting that much. So we will be touching the camera in a second. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need to make some ground. And so the Unity is made up of an entity component system, which means it's made up of game objects, which are things like these. They basically have a sort of like a instance, like some basic data, and then they have stuff you can attach to them. So for example, a quad, which is just what's a plane? That's a plane. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of this stuff over here. And this is the default information. So all game objects have a transform. This just tells you the basic stuff like their position and rotation and scale. Fairly straightforward. And this is the actual mesh, as in like this refers to stuff like when you're dealing with stuff like physical objects, like a plane or a cube, they have meshes, and which will be displayed over there. And the material, which is basically a shader with some inputs, and I'll go over that by the end. But I think the first thing we're going to need to do is this will be a ground. Let's make a cube. Raise the cube up. And I don't like this hard shadow. I might fiddle with the right light in a second. I'm going to make that, and I'm going to make another. So what we're trying, the game we're trying to actually make is something like a collectathon game. So just collecting some spheres to take up a point system, and that will be the win state. Get all the little balls, and you win. It's a very basic setup. The sphere is a bit too big, so this is where you would change stuff over here. You want to make sure you change all of them, because as you can see, each one controls a different direction. So if they're not all the same number, it won't be an even shrink.
Oh wait.
All right. So how do you get there? How do you get to that menu?
This menu?
Yeah. How do you get to that menu?
So just click. You see in the inspector when you click an object, one of your little objects over here. You'll be able to get one of these menus. Any other questions? I know I went a little bit fast.
Yeah, actually. Does everybody else see how like randomly it'll just zoom in on like whatever window Donovan's operating in?
Yeah, I noticed that.
You just zoom in on this?
Yeah, if you're like editing the
every other menu.
Yeah.
You went onto that list of like objects. When you went onto that list of objects, it was just that list of objects on the left.
I think you could fix that by sharing your entire screen instead of just.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
This makes more sense. Change windows. Screens, this one. There we go. So it should be better then. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, so if you want to, oh, by the way, quick thing, you probably noticed this if you are playing around with Unity. If you're wondering how this is doing, I'm doing this, I just am clicking the middle mouse button, and that should pan the camera like this. You can also use the arrow keys, or I think WASD works. No, it does not. Of course it wouldn't, that makes sense. Anyway, so arrow keys or middle mouse and scrolling. Those are the two. I use those two a lot. Very helpful. So notice that little, we'll get into this in a second. You notice that the sphere and the cube, there's this little green glow around them. That's called a collider. This will be important because when we'll need them to for when we detect when they intersect, and therefore we can delete the sphere and make a point. But instead of just talking around it, we're going to have to make a script for that. So go over here, C# script. We'll call this player. This gets into the essence of entity component stuff, because these are our entities and this is one of our components. And managing them and making sure you have.
Yeah, I feel like I should ask. Sorry again, because I'm gonna be harassing you with these questions. How did you make that C# thing? The C# file there?
They're good questions, so I don't mind. And I've right-clicked and then went to create. You can also do this with.
Just right-click it.
Yeah, you can do it through assets, or you can do it through right-click in the project and then go over to create, and you'll see C# script. And I calling mine player pretty straightforward. Let's rename the cube as well. So if you click on the cube, we can rename it. To rename it player. And you know what? Since we're in the neighborhood of this, see this tag? This will be useful for our coding purposes. We'll get in more into it once we actually get into the code. It won't make sense now, but since we're here, I think it'll make sense to click this tag. And if you have it, just go over to player. That way the cube can tell, the sphere can tell who's hitting what. But so let's get over into player. And let's start with movement. Just double click on the script when you need to edit it. And I will stop for a second while this loads. Any questions?
While it does, that tag, so whatever tag you put in there, so like you have that player file, whatever you put in that player file, if an object is tagged as player, that file will apply to that object, right?
Not quite like that. It's more like, say you have a bunch of bullets, right? And you have like a special ability that like wipes away all bullets. Well, you will give all the bullets a tag called bullet, and make it so that you just can easily search all the things in the scene that are tagged bullet and delete them.
All right.
It's a way to find these objects in this scene.
Okay. Yeah.
And rather than just like searching your name, because you may not want something super specific, you may just want like a type.
Yeah.
This becomes more important once we get into prefabs or game objects with components that you can generate in real time, or just generate as a copy and paste. Essentially, they're very handy and good for organizational purposes. So this runs at the very beginning of a frame, as it says up here, and this is called once per frame. But keyword per frame, not once per second, per frame. This is important because it runs so fast that it can actually create weirdness if you don't account for it. We'll get into that in a second. I don't think it will be that much of an issue this time. So let's say int points. Let's start with that. This is for later, well, because we need a point system for this game. And for now, that should be it. So the first thing I want to do is make a system for just basic movement, just sliding this cube around. So what we're going to do is make our first if statement. I think it's input. Yep. Get key.
I'm gonna let you know this right now. Your Discord notifications are popping up.
Yeah, I know. I can't. I don't know what to do with that.
All right, just letting you know.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. I think I won't worry about it for now. Or whatever. So basically, we want to get, basically I'm going to use WASD as our up, down, left, right controls. So what we're doing right now is we're using the input libraries here, and we're going to basically say, hey, is the key pressed? And then we use key code, which refers to, hey, which key are you going to use? So let's do this. I'm just going to make it big as if else. I'm going to do 2 of these actually, because one for up and down and one for left, right. So this is left and right. And this is up and down. So input, you can use a different key if you want, but I'm just going to be using WASD. I'm just going to copy paste.
And while you're doing this, I wanted to ask, do you know generally how long this is going to take?
I'm hoping for 30 minutes. I'm hoping.
The whole thing in 30 minutes?
Probably 45.
Oh.
That's like give or take. Because again, once we have the input, right, we need input, we need collision, and then we need UI. And those are the 3 things we need. That won't take very long.
Oh, all right.
I know, that sounds... Yeah, because again, this is not a really complicated game. We're going to... So the common way you can do this is with transform dot position. So transform refers to the actual that thing I showed you earlier with game objects, where it has the position, rotation. It's a thing used in most 3D systems for transforms. There's some math involved. Well, don't want to get too technical right this second, but all game objects have a transform, which describes where they are and what they're like, their orientation, stuff like that. So we could just do it like this. Transform.position time. Like this. And I think we could do it like this. Oh, hold on, I need to make a vector because this is a 3-dimensional object. So, not 1.
Once you finish up with this game, do you think I could hound you to help me figure out this visual code thing for C#?
For C#, you're using visual after this?
Well, yeah, after this.
Maybe.
Maybe? All right.
Yeah. But you also could use... Hold on. I think it's vector... Hold on. Yeah, there it is. We also can use this as well, which I prefer it because it interpolates a bit. But for now, let's just stick with this. And if we run into problems, I will troubleshoot them. So we'll copy paste. Now, obviously, since we're going in different directions, X, Y, and this is Z, because we're not using Y, because Y is actually up, like literally vertically up and down relative to the plane. So we're going to be using X and Z. And if there's orientation troubles, we can easily fix these. And now that we have that out of the way, let's examine our handiwork over here. So just let it compile. there's any issues, it'll yell at me. Looks like it's happy. Even look in console, there's some warnings, but who cares? Oh, it didn't accept my name. There we go. Now to apply the script, we drag it like so. And now it should be running. Oh, under the camera's under the, so we're gonna have to change this camera. In fact, this is important because when you like right click in a scene like this, here's another tip. If you right click in a scene like so, like just randomly, and create an object, it won't be 0, 0, 0. It'll just be at some other point. So if you want it to be a specific place, you should go into the position and 0 it. And I'm going to do that now.
So we'd have to set the tag to player, and then we also have to drag that script over to the side menu?
Yeah.
All right. I imagine they also have to have like the same name, right?
The tag in the player?
And the script, yeah.
No, they don't. I just named it player for reference. And then we can make the plane. I'm just adjusting this for ease of use. Where's sphere? Yeah, because they're all inside each other now. I want to keep relatively close. Keep in mind, there's no gravity here. Now, here's something you probably notice. I have it backwards because of the camera's orientation. But notice it just kind of passes through the sphere. That's because we don't have a rigid body, which actually handles the physics part of things. And we don't have gravity on for that rigid body either. So it doesn't exist, so no physics can act. But that doesn't matter too much, or the actual physics, the gravity part, the physics part does matter because we actually want these things to, collide easier. So we'll be dealing with that, I think, next. So how is everyone on this?
Yeah, all right.
Hey, did you already make a player controller? I see a script at the bottom.
Yes, I did. Let me show you it.
Sure.
It's just a bunch of if statements.
Gotcha.
You're just getting the keys for each one, and you're taking its transform and moving it based on the difference between frames times a scale, which we're using 5. Right now, the controls are going to look reversed because I didn't move the camera. Since we're here, I'm just going to change that because I don't want to move the camera right now. Plus, you can. So we'll have this. Let it load.
Pretty interesting how you're working on Unity and not Unreal.
I know Unity much better. I've done Unreal once, so I can't really teach that.
Gotcha.
It is funny though. I do find it interesting how the DD people just tend to be in Unreal, and then the IT people just end up in the IT or CS end up in Unity. It seems to me.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have a question now. It just hit me. What's the purpose of the tag then that you had mentioned before? Because if I assume that maybe it would have something to do with the script that you would attach to that object, but now they don't need the same.
So
tag,
it's to track this down easier. Man, it's laggy for some reason.
You can use them as triggers if you wanted to. So it's a lot easier to keep track of stuff with tags.
Yes. Basically, if when this object intersects with this, when it hits, right, and you want to call a function, that only calls when they hit.
Oh, okay.
That means you can easily, you don't have to like, hey,
Yeah.
game, what's the name of this object? I can just go, oh, here's the tag.
Got you. All right. Thank you.
It's useful, especially like, again, like this is where it's good for standardizing certain interactions.
Mhm.
So I think the next step should be rigid body. We are not going to use gravity. I think they're going to be discrete. And the sphere, I'm going to do the same. Now we could write them as triggers, but I want to show you this part because it's so easy to screw up this. It's a common mistake with early or for beginners in Unity of like, hey, why aren't these two colliding? Why aren't they? What we also want to do is we want to freeze rotation because that's going to get squirrely if we do that. Or rather, like they'll just rotate around freely when they hit. I'd rather not. I might show you if I'm going to save my work. So the test for this, the next step. So now we have these rigid bodies which deal in like their actual physics part. That isn't just like, hey, are these two things colliding? Or are they just intersecting? The thing I want to do next is what we're going to do is make a function. It's called on collision enter. So on collision enter is a Unity function. It's inside Unity itself that you can call and overwrite, which calls when the collision starts. There are different collisions depending on, like for example, let's say they collide, but they stay collided. There's one for that, which is good for making your own physics logic. There's one for when they exit, which is good for triggers. But we're using enter, which is a very standard one. If you just want them to, hey, when they hit, this is the one you'd use. So what we're going to do is if, now what does that actually call the sphere? This is where the spheres tag actually becomes relevant. I didn't give it a tag. Well, I think I added this tag. You probably don't see this tag called point. If you don't see it, go to add and just go over here, click it, and then you'll just make a new tag. So back to sphere, we're going to call it point, and we're going to have it so that when we collide, tag. I don't know, collider, collision collider tag. There we go. Okay. I'm going to stretch a bit because I have this weird setup.
Hey, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Did you already talk about the difference in update and fixed update?
No, that's a good though. I actually like that. So fixed update is not per frame. It's I think per second or some fixed difference of time. It's not frame rate based.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really useful for physics because it standardizes the updates. So you don't have you having collision problems based on your frame rate, which could be bad. So
If you play Bethesda games, you already know.
you can how important your collision detection is. Not just collision detection, but like reacting to collision detection, which is everything that physics is. So now that that's done, we'll have points go up. And you know what? What's the greater than 0? I think it's. I'm just going to do that as a test. This is a bit of a placeholder. I just want to make sure it collides. So now that that's done, there we go. We got collision. And as you can see, it since they're staying together like this, it's barely resisting. You get a lot of messages really quickly. Now, let's rotate. Because then we actually are looking the same way the camera is towards our objects. So there's a bit more consistency. So any questions before I continue?
No, I'm good.
Okay, everyone's good. Let's double check on.
A quick question on my part. Where did you go to make those tags again? Like to make that new one?
So you go here, you click on this.
How did
There we
you
go.
Sorry, I looked away literally as you were doing it. I didn't think it was that fast. How did you get to this menu right here?
Go to player, go to the
Oh.
actual tag and drop down,
Yeah.
and you just add tag.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So now, as you can tell, this sphere isn't disappearing. And to refresh, we want it to disappear because we're trying to make a point-based collecting game. We want to collect these circles, have a UI little text box tick up, and then say, hey, you win. So for that purpose, we are going to need script called points. This script called points will do basically one thing only. And that is delete itself. This is a good practice. It's good to make sure that your entities are only doing things related to themselves and don't, unless they're a manager, they're not forcing other things to do things for you. Just keep things within their own wheelhouse. It's advice I was told. You will probably be told by Bo if you take foundations, because you will have to get really deep into this because you're going to be making a game in a semester, which will be very harrowing but very enlightening if you take that class. And this is how you delete objects. You go, so you destroy this. So this will just kill it when it hits. And we can even test it. What's that load? Everything's compiled. No, I must have missed something up. Is it a capital P? Did I put a capital P? I did. Oh, wait, maybe. I think I just destroyed the script. That's what happened. Game object, that's better. See, this is that little tricky thing about coding. This just refers to the actual script, the actual object that is connected to the component of the script. Game object refers to the actual thing. We'll see how right I am. Oh, that's interesting. Off it goes. Where did it go? There it goes. Yes,
That's something.
that's
Working
beautiful.
as intended.
That's
Working as intended, indeed. Okay. This is where we're going to get into some troubleshooting. So I wonder what happened there. Does it not have...
Could it be touching the plane or something?
No, it's not. I don't think it's a problem if it colliding with something else. I just don't think it's colliding itself. It's not really...
Did you actually apply the script to the sphere?
Right, I didn't. Thank you. That's what
Mhm.
happened. Oh,
Got to drag.
just gotta
Yeah, you
slide
can
in.
also create scripts by right-clicking on an object, and you can just do it straight to there.
Oh, all right.
It's true. You can also just do it from add components as well.
Yep.
Probably better workflow, to be honest, than what I'm doing.
They both have their pros and cons.
Yeah. Part of development's like learning your, getting a good sense of workflow. Oh, there we go. It's
Right.
gone.
Hey, good job.
Whoa. So wait, is there an actual like mechanical difference that happens to the code or something if you were to right click and make the script or?
No, there's
No,
no difference.
Oh, okay.
there's no difference. It's just a matter of like how you do your it's just this workflow, just making things, how you, your momentum, your creative momentum and all that. Save. So we have that. Now the next thing, since I think we can turn this into a prefab. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this game. You can do this many ways. You can just click it. I think you can just create, maybe, no, I'll just drag it then. That's what I know. Well, making a prefab. This will allow us to basically make more points, like so. Now, we're going to have to change these, obviously, because they're in the floor. Forgive me. This is get my poor computer. It's not very happy with me. Or, yeah, just there we go. Let's do this.
You did that how? Like, how'd you put it down there in the what is that, asset?
Drag and drop.
You just drag and drop, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Any more? Just double check. Is everyone caught up? Okay. So I just selected over all of these, so we can all move them at once as one giant happy family. The height doesn't matter that much, again, because all that matters is that this big bulky cube actually hits these spheres and ticks up points. So for our purposes, it really does not matter the height per se. I'm just doing it so that they're not in the floor. And I'm going to separate these a little bit. As a game, this is going to be a bit, as you can see, it's going to be a pretty simple game, but that's the point. But even as a simple game, this is a bit haphazard. If you want to make this more structured, you can actually do a lot with, like, you could place like walls and stuff to make this more like a Pac-Man thing and give it more structure. I actually recommend you do so if you like for a game jam. I think actually that'd be a nice little project, taking this and see if you can actually turn this into something more interesting. But now that we have these, I think we can start with UI. So what we're going to do is just like we did with these game objects, like the spheres and the cube, we're going to right click, and then instead of these, we're going to go over to UI. And I'm going to make text. Notice that once you make text, a canvas appears and an event system appears. The event system deals with like clicking, just like clicking on buttons and stuff. It's like a input system. It's an input manager, essentially. And the canvas is this big boy, and this is where the actual UI will be displayed. And you can even see right here, we're going to move it up. I'm going to do points. I'm going to copy paste this because we're going to need to have this on hand. So this just will display the text, and guess who's going to control the text? The player is. Now, if you wanted to expand this out, you probably would want a manager to control that. That's points. So at the start, actually make a public. Let me spell things. Public. This way, you can. There's other ways. Basically, this allows us to drag stuff into the script from like the outside. Otherwise, everything would just be kind of locked in and invisible. So public text, and it'll add the library we're using for us. Text, not test, text. And text dot text. Very cursed. Indeed. So when the game starts, this is going to set to this, so that it doesn't get overwritten, so that it's standardized. And we're going to have it in here. Put it in update. In fact, it's going to be plus points. And if points, and we have 5. So if it's greater than 4, instead of printing that, nope. Did everyone follow what I just did? I'm assuming.
Nah.
Okay. Any questions then?
Well, no. Yeah, I got it. Never mind.
Okay. So now we have basically, we're going to have a reference to the text for the UI. We're telling it to say, hey, it's equal to 0. Then we're just updating it by basically replacing this with a new string that's the same thing, but with the amount of points we have. Then we just change it to you win, and that's our win condition. And we can see it's in the corner. It's not very big. You could change that. You probably should and should make it bigger. But if it loads, it's not. Oh, wait. Oh, right. Yeah. No wonder it's mad. So this is what it's basically saying. Hey, why didn't you reference the thing? This is what happens when you rely on dragging stuff, and why having the game grab things is sometimes very helpful. But we can just tell it. So what I just did is, since we told to give it a reference to this text, I just dragged the text over into the script in player. Did everyone follow that?
And I think you can only do that if it's public, right?
Yes, if it's public or if you declared it serializable, that also does it as well.
Oh, gotcha.
Just for me then, could you just redo that dragging thing so I could just see it happen one more time?
Sure.
Oh. All right, for sure. My bad then. I didn't know it was that simple.
It's okay. No problem.
I think
Save.
usually it highlights it for you to stuff that you can drop it to. I forget though.
Okay, so bop, 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 bop. Oh. Yeah, okay, that's a weird control issue. Oh. That's why. I didn't actually make it go backwards. Also made it go in a weird direction, huh? So weird. Anyway, let's do this again. Oh. Now, see, as you see over here, it says you win. I also made the controls for up and down backwards. I'll fix that in a second. Here. Yeah, it's a font thing. Much better. Much better. Obviously, if you this is where UI, making your own UI and portraits and stuff like that comes very handy, because as you can kind of see, it's a bit noisy. It's dark on dark. I mean, you can still read it, but it's preferably you want something with better contrast. But so technically, right now, we have the game, essentially. Now, we already are having a little bit of a problem here. If you were to say, to like build this, and you have like a lower color palette, you might end up with no shadows and everything being the same color, and you can't see anything. So I'm going to show you off. One of our final things I'm going to show off is materials. So a material is basically a shader with some inputs attached. And a shader is basically a script like these, but specifically for graphics. It uses its own language, HLSL. It's actually it's Shader Lab actually. It's a Unity variant of HLSL, which is a Microsoft shader language. And if you're curious about more, you should look into things like how graphics programming, and take either a graphics programming class or do some research on your own. But the basics is that they're just scripts that manipulate the visual of something. And this one we're going to make, I'm going to do one for the floor and make it blue. To apply it, you just drag it. Oh, this is game in scene. Remember to keep things in order. But in scene, just drag. Boop. As you can see, dark blue. Now everything pops out.
Really quick, what's the mechanical difference between scene and game?
Game just shows you what the camera sees, what the main camera sees specifically. So you can't really interact with it at all, and you interact with it only with the controls. So if it was like when you're playing like this, for example, you're seeing the game camera. That's what you're seeing. It's basically previewing what it's like to play.
What the player would see.
Yeah, and I can control.
And then I imagine scene is where you, like the actual developer, can interact with it and change things about it.
Yes, that's the exact idea. Now, let's give everything else a color. So we're going to make materials for everyone. Everyone gets a material. We're not making a shader. I do have a shader I could show off, but I'm not going to make a shader.
Fancy.
So, oh wait. See, this is the thing. Hold on. This is where we're going to get into prefabs. I want to change all of the prefabs colors. So, boom. And when we go out, boom. Everything red. It's the beauty of prefabs. If you change the actual blueprint, as it's called for the prefab, you change it for everything. I'm not going to. Now let's rename it. Rather not. Just leave it like this.
You changed it. Damn. What is it?
Basically, I double clicked on the sphere prefab, which is like the blueprint of all of these spheres. So I double clicked, and then I dragged this material, which is basically just changes its color, and put it on like that.
All right.
And we could just leave the cube. Well, no. Yeah, it's not that hard to make a material. Let's just make it really white. Just call it white even. Actually, shader unlit. Oh, those are other shaders. Never mind. Let's see what this does. Nothing, I'm gonna assume. Yeah, because that's the actual thing. We'll just make it purple. No, let's make it yellow, green. There. And there's one thing we could do before we're done. So now that we can have some nice contrast, we have a win condition. The game, for the most part, is done. But there is one thing that I think is super important, and we all need to at least know about it. Animation. It's not animating. There's nothing animating at all. None of these are bobbing or anything like that. So how about this is something I actually haven't. Let's try something interesting. So here's what we can do. Let's go. I'm going to test something out. Let's go here. And we're going to animate the sphere. And what we're going to do is, there's this animation tab. What you can do is, let's close this tab, for example. And I think it's Window, Animation tab. So basically, click, yeah, that's how you do it. So what you do is you click here, add tab, then you get animation, and you get this animation tab. Then we're going to click create animator and animation clip. So how Unity works, we'll add it to the scene. How Unity works is every animation is made up of a finite state machine and a animation clip. And what we're going to do is basically you would animate like you would animate everything else. You give it a property to look at. In this case, it's transform position. Now we have a Bob, but we don't have a nice return. We need to move this. We're going to move it here. I'm going to copy, paste the key, like so. What's that here? Forgive me, I'm fiddling around a bit. There we go. So the idea is we would record. You can basically have it record and record a keyframe, and you move it around. And you can create these keyframes, and then when you play it, it will go in between them like so. It's not a great animation, to be honest.
How do you make those keyframes?
So let's change this. Basically, you can use the recording tool. So you would go add property, position, then you click. You right click and add a key. And then when you change the keys over here, like so. So as you can see, when you click over here,
Oh, okay. So when you like put something, I'm assuming that that blue bar with those numbers, that's how much time has passed.
this is the
Okay,
time
so
between.
when you click when you click on those keys in the middle, that's just you put it where you want it to be at that time, and then it just the program itself would just make it so that by this point the object would have moved to that new location, or
Yes, that's the
oh,
idea.
got it.
I am having a little bit of, a bit struggling a bit.
Hey, I got a question. What do you guys use over there to model stuff? Maya, 3DX, Blender?
I'm not a model person. I'm pretty lazy and don't like
Mm.
modeling anything. I've used, because again, a lot of my stuff has been 2D, and I've done some 3D stuff,
Right.
but I've often used just like when I did my first project in 3D, I we had an artist during a game jam, so I didn't do modeling. I think the artist used Blender, I think.
Mm.
I do a little bit of modeling. I use 3ds Max,
Mm.
since that's easier to work with primitives. I have used ZBrush too, but that's kind of advanced, and I don't really know what I'm doing.
Right.
But I have used it. Okay, bye.
Is there like an official software that the course uses or nah?
Like,
When it comes to like teaching like how to do everything,
oh, if
I
you're,
guess.
oh, like for programming or like modeling?
Yeah, for like programming.
I guess Unity would be kind of the de facto official. Um,
Oh no, wait, no. So how does the course work like at NJIT? Like when they teach you about programming, what program is it that they use?
like for game development, or
Yeah, in
um,
general.
mostly Unity, but you can use other things if you want. But because the professors are kind of flexible, usually,
Hmm.
it's something
Oh,
you'll have to
gotcha.
talk to the actual professors about. But they should be willing
Hmm.
to work with whatever.
Yeah, because over here, when I went to UCC, what they did was they gave you Maya, so you did all your programming there. So they taught you a bit of that, and then they had you export it over to Unity.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
All right, I got you.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Hold on, we just.
So like everything he's showing now with the Unity like animation editor or whatever, the timeline, I haven't used that at all. So I just found it interesting.
Yeah, I haven't used it that much either. Hence why I'm kind of struggling a bit.
Mm-hmm. Looks good to me. I mean, you know, it works. It just works.
It just works. $104. Okay, it needs to be a -8. So now, there we go. Much nicer.
Awesome.
Okay. And I think if I'm not crazy, this might cause something weird to happen. Because I did notice that, yeah,
Skadoosh.
that just went weird. There's no function name specified. Perhaps controller sphere. Hmm. Um, do some more debugging. But basically, if I turn off, hold on, if I go back into sphere, turn this off. That's not what I meant. Oh, it's in scene. Oops. Oh, it's being like teleported around, I suppose.
Nothing personal, kid.
Yeah. Teleports behind you. Okay, well that's wacky. I don't like that at all.
Did you apply it to the prefab or to just the one instance?
I probably just applied it to the one instance. Or I applied it to prefab. I don't think I actually did the whole.
Prefab means the stuff down in asset scenes, right?
Yeah.
All right.
The instance is what you actually see at the top left. So you could, so prefabs are like, you can think of it as the original one, and the ones at the top left would be clones.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So let's do something a bit easier for me.
Couldn't you just take the one sphere that the animation works for and then just make like duplicates of that?
Well, the issue is I think it's weird because all the other. Wait, actually, no. I think I know what the problem is. I think.
Well,
No.
then just for my sake, then, like, that would be a viable answer for this, or would that not work for whatever reason?
Oh, right. I made them all off, I think is the issue. Let's just do this. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about this then. This was just a little bit of a
Which one is
experiment.
the one that is actually animating? Do you know?
All of them are. I think it's.
Oh, they're all getting teleported to the same place?
Yeah,
Hmm.
which is unfortunate. So I'm just going to give up on that one, unfortunately. Before this ends, then I'm gonna try something I do know works this time. This will be my last thing. I know I just kind of gone on longer than I meant it to, so forgive me for this little excursion. So we're just gonna do scale because add a frame. We could do it like that. And so then we'll have a expanding cube like this. So. And now we'll see what happens to Mr. Expanding Cube as it slowly loads. There we go. Expanding Cube. And that's basic animation.
Interesting.
Again, this is just more for like the little keyframing things. If you want to do something more robust, I recommend it. Cause trying that, you like do full body animations of like rigs is a terrible plan in Unity. And that's basically your first game. And your first game, very simple. That covers like most of the basic sections of Unity. I recommend if you're interested in, say, now there's a whole bunch of stuff you can get into in the future, like, for example, render, replace like shaders and post processing. Yeah, that's what it's called, post processing, where you use shader scripts to change what the camera is seeing, so you can do cool effects like night vision or have like echo effects you can do with shaders and also post processing. You can shaders in general pretty cool. In fact, I actually have a shader we can use over. Just go to materials, unlit. Oh, I think I'll just go to here. Oh yeah, this is not gonna work quite the same way. This is gonna be a bit weird. So never mind. But for like an example, this might do it. Notice that see that little, here's an example of a shader. This uses something called, this is basically a weird technique.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, it's witchcraft, right? What I'm doing is I'm basically having like an imaginary camera inside this cube that's like sending out rays. Only I'm not ray tracing exactly, I'm ray marching. So there's differences, but you can see the cool stuff you can do with something like ray marching or with this shader, and so the whole cool stuff you can do with shaders and post processing and complex physics and there's just so much else you could do, and heck, you can and there's a lot you even could do to make this simple game way more interesting and look more alive. Like with the like in I think even with just like the animation existing makes the game feel a little better, even if it's still janky, of course, but it's better than easily better than when it started. And so I recommend if you're doing a game jam, if you're being part of a game jam, you think about these sorts of things and think about. I'm going to start sharing because this is basically over. The different ways you can improve your games and improve simple games. This has been the first game workshop. Any questions before this wraps up?
Nah, yeah. Thanks for it. Thanks for having the workshop.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was really good.
Thanks.
I got that request. So like, could you help me like set up that visual code then for this?
I've
'Cause
never,
I tried before, and there was like that whole problem with it.
I never dealt with the visual coding stuff for Unity, so I don't know how much help I would actually be.
All right.
What is that, like blueprints?
It's where it's a compiler.
It's a new thing. It's a new feature for Unity. I think it's like a beta thing or a prototype thing. I don't know if it's out yet.
Oh, I was thinking it was like blueprints for Unreal.
I
I
think
don't think I've used it.
I think it's based off blueprints. It's trying to be visual scripting like blueprints are.
Oh, okay.
From what I
Gotcha.
understand.
Wait, are you talking about like Bolt? Like I think that's what it's called.
I have no idea. I was never really good with visual scripting. I don't know why.
All right. Well,
Like, unless I write it out, I'm like trash at it.
thanks for doing this. Really.
You're welcome. It was honestly very quite simple once I made I did it on my own very quickly to see how much you're taking.
Do you know?
Pretty painless.
Do you know maybe who I could refer to help me set up the visual code the proper way then?
I don't know. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who's dealt with that yet because it's very new.
Well,
Wait, are you talking about Visual Studio Code, or are you talking about the visual scripting?
oh no, I meant Visual Studio Code, like the compiler that he was using in the stream.
Oh,
Oh, that's a different thing. Okay, I actually might be able to help with that. What are you trying to do?
I'm just trying to set it up so that I can, actually do something with my with Unity. But like I had tried it before. And I got confused throughout the middle of it, and I thought that like at this point it'd be easier on me if I just got someone else to help me do it.
Just use Notepad, bro.
Jeez,
I
no.
thought about that,
Oh God, that's cruel.
but yeah.
Well, to be fair, when you're taking like a Linux class, you're basically doing that, only using Vim or something. It's just like a better
I've been
version of
there.
it. I used Emacs actually for that class.
So then what? All right. So then if it's not Visual Studio Code, what do you suggest I use then?
No, Visual Studio Code, I think I might be able to help. I need to figure out what your actual problem is.
Well, the problem before was that I was like, what was the problem? It was, man, it's been a while, I can't remember. So for this, right? For like making your game and whatnot, I had asked you before, and you said that C# was like the smarter way to go. So right now, really, what I'm doing is just taking your word on it, and I'm trying to work with C sharp. Does that like because it says like, oh, if you want to add other languages, then you have to download the proper extensions through the software itself. So I just wanted to make sure if there was like anything that I might have to do out of the ordinary to get to get C sharp.
For Unity, you mean?
Yeah, to use on Unity.
Um,
To
I
use
can't. I
on
don't think so off the top of my head.
I think
If
I might be able to answer that.
I'm listening.
So I think that you actually want to use regular Visual Studio instead of Visual Studio Code
All right. Why?
because it comes with a C# compiler automatically.
All right.
Like Visual Studio is an IDE, whereas Visual Studio Code is like a text editor. So it doesn't actually have any like compilers or interpreters in it. You have to actually get them itself. But the regular Visual Studio has all that stuff.
all right. Thanks.
Hmm.
Mm,
there's also some extensions you can get in Visual Studio um, that help integrate to Unity a bit better, but that's like other stuff like debug, like breakpoints and stuff. That kind of thing is what you would get extensions for. So you should be able to work by default with just Visual Studio.
okay then. Um, and then one last thing before I go: is there any sort of like weird like hookup thing that I'd have to do between Visual Studio and Unity, or like once I start working on it? Because like I saw you working on it, right? And then you would like just create a C sharp file, and it would instantly like open up in Visual Studio. So, like, is that just
I think what um, I think if I remember this right, it will ask you what to open files with, or if
oh yeah,
certain C sharp stuff. I think what we'll do is because it recognizes it as C sharp, Visual Studio will use Visual Studio to open it because that's like the thing I think by default.
all right. Well,
Yeah, I think that'll
yeah.
happen.
Thanks, guys.
And if you the one thing to if you want to integrate it like further, there's like extensions that you can find and download through Visual Studio that deal with breakpoints. Yeah, mainly breakpoints. It allows you to essentially to go through and debug your code line by line by pausing it and just going step by step.
All right.
Um,
Well,
look into that if you're interested, but you don't need it, especially if you want to make something simple. You can probably debug it by eye or just use a bunch of print statements. It really is a preferential thing.
all right. Um, and then yeah, I think I got one last question. Is there any like any online source that you guys would recommend to like pick this stuff up to like learn the
Brackeys,
syntax? Bracket, you
Brackeys
said?
in YouTube.
Yeah,
If you
Brackeys.
need any help.
Spell it.
Like brackets,
Uh-huh.
but rather than a T, you put a Y.
EY. All right, Brackies. All right. Uh,
Also, look at the Unity documentation when needed. It's very helpful. That's one
There's
of the
yeah,
things.
there's like a bunch of Unity stuff, dude. It's like crazy how big the community is.
Oh God, it's so helpful.
all right, I'll be sure to do that. Thanks, guys.
You're
Appreciate
gonna
that.
miss it if you ever make your own engine. Oh dear God.
Hmm.
I got no plans for doing that yet, so I'll
Well,
there for now.
yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate the help.
You're welcome.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And